dudes and dudettes, I'm here with an update for my Path of Exile Righteous Fire build that I nicknamed Righteous Pinata. This is going to be a complete update for it from the ground up, from the passives, the items, the spells, and everything, because the Val update did add a lot to go over for this build, and I found some other cool things that could be added to Righteous Pinata that could make it even more fun and awesome and flashy. So let's get right down to it. The passive nodes have changed. With the Val update, they changed around a bunch of the Marauder and a few of the Templar, and I'm not sure where else, but I do know these have changed. The ones that affected Righteous Fire was actually in the positive. They moved the elemental adaptation that was right here up to the Templar section, but we'll be going up there anyway, so we can grab that. But they also added a 2% max resist to the Marauder line, so the Righteous Fire build actually became stronger. Not so necessarily stronger, but had more survivability, which in turn is stronger. The passive list is going to be like most Righteous Fire builds that are health based and not energy shield based, where you go for all the regen and all the life you can get. The difference between normal Righteous Fire builds and the Righteous Pinata build that I go for is I max all the AoE I can. By the end of by the time you reach a high level, you'll have gotten all the area of effect spells, and you'll have gotten considerable elemental damage as well right here, because Righteous Pinata use cast when damage taken, and when all the spells go off you want that little extra damage, and it does get boosted of course by the Righteous Fire itself, because Righteous Fire adds spell damage. So you see how it all synergizes together. And we'll go the passive nodes and stuff will be in the info section below, the passive list and everything. You can just load it up and follow it. It's got the one for the level 65 with all the 21 quest skills you get, and it's got one for the what I would envision would be the max level, and I'm nowhere near the max level, but that's what I would be going for. But the fun part is, after 65 you can branch off and go wherever you want. It's still an effective build, and then you can be a Righteous Fire with summonables, a Righteous Fire with other things, so forth. We're going to go with items next, and I'm going to show you the items that are essential to this build that you're going to need. And that's going to be Rise of the Phoenix, is the most essential for a Righteous Fire build, and for the Pinata build you're going to need Carcass Jack. And I prefer the Supreme Truth for the build as well. Rise of the Phoenix is quite expensive right now in Ambush, and I think it's about 1 to 3 exalted in Standard as well, so it's gotten a lot more expensive, but it will come down as time passes in Ambush. The Rise of the Phoenix is so important because of the 8% to maximum fire resist, and it's what designates that you'll be able to use Righteous Fire once you get to level 65. So that's why everyone says once you reach 65 then you can use RF. It's because of this shield. So keep that in mind, that you'll need some other way to level up to level 65 before you can be using Righteous Fire. There's multiple ways you can do this, by using the Flame Blast or any other fire moves, because you can already go down fire. You can get extra fire damage in the passive nodes, or using like Cyclone. I was gonna say Whirlwind, D2. You can use Cyclone, you can use Cleave and stuff like that with different mauls or axes, because you do get a lot of strength and a lot of dex with this build, and those can help you level up and get to 65. And then Carcass Jack, the reason I use it is because it has such synergy with all the AoE that we're going to be using with Righteous Pinata, and it synergizes well with Righteous Fire because it makes Righteous Fire a radius bigger and increases the area and damage, which increases Righteous Fire. It happens to also look disgusting, but it does add life to us as well, and 10% elemental resistance, so it is really a good armor. I prefer it over Calms, though I can't even afford Calms. This is a more affordable option, and that's the fun of Righteous Pinata, is it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg like some builds cost 50 exalted. This doesn't cost near that. It costs tops a couple exalted, and that's if the Rise of the Phoenix is 3. Usually you're going to get this for 2 exalted or so. The Carcass Jacks is a must needed for that, the AoE, because you're going to see soon all the spells that I use are AoE except for one. The Supreme Truth I use because I don't like switching back and forth between this to just get squeak out a little more damage. I know some people use red beaks over here on the path, they'll cast Righteous Fire over here, then they'll switch back just for that a little extra damage, or they'll use the Fire Staff. I forget the exact name of it, but I don't use that. I prefer to be able, when I jump into a next map, I just hit Righteous Fire and I go. I don't have to switch back and forth, and while that is, takes a second, I don't like doing the snapshotting stuff. So that's just my personal preference to it. I'm going to stick to what my character looks like and stuff like that. The Supreme Truth also does add 40% increased elemental damage, so it enhances your spells that are going off with Righteous Pinata, and it enhances your Righteous Fire. It does add 5% increased experience gain, so you're going to be out-leveling those other people. And that can be a plus. And then the +1 to level of gems in it is pretty cool, and then you do have the cool look that it has. Someone commented on this and said, I wish I would have gotten in on the beta and gotten the cool cosmetic item that has. And I was like, dude, that's not a cosmetic item, that's Supreme Truth. Supreme Truth gets this automatically. It looks awesome, doesn't it? You can see there it has that. So it's a real cool item to have, and I love it because Righteous Pinata is supposed to be flashy like fireworks and stuff like that, and this just adds to it. Then the rest of the items, they're not essential. They're going to be getting, you're going to want to get items with high armor, high life, high resistances, and stuff like that, just survivability. And you can switch them around if you want, but I just go for high life and armor and survivability on them. You can go for rings that have fire damage as well. You might want to keep your energy shield low, because it does wear down on your life. So you really don't need much energy shield anyways. It's not like you're going to be in trouble with this kind of build. The flask we're going to go over too, because I feel flasks are very important to the Righteous Fire build. I use 2 life flasks and 2 ruby flask and a granite flask as my default ones. The life flask that I use, I say that I say this when I was talking to some other people as well. You need an immunity to curses flask. That's one flask that you have to have, because curses can cause you to take a lot more damage, and they can, it can cause some bad effects on you. And this immunity to curses really helps you out in tough situations, like vulnerability can still wreck you when you're using Righteous Fire. And then I like having an increased amount recovered, because you can see that there 1,728 life over 11.9 seconds. That makes your regen look like insane down here. And then on the ruby on the other life flask, I like increased life recovery again. And since it says 10% of life recovered from mana when used, you don't use any mana, so you can have those and not be punished for it. And I have this one as a 30% increased movement speed during flash effect, because with Righteous Fire you're going to be flying through these enemies. You're going to be burning them down real quick, and if they do last, when you can circle around them or set there, and the pinata will go off on them. For the ruby flask, this one is going to have the increased movement speed effect on it as well. I liked having movement speed, and usually if you're going to be doing tough stuff, which I haven't ran across much, you can add in the ruby flask that cures frozen and cures shock. Don't add one that cures burning, because it turns off your Righteous Fire. So cures shock and stuff like that, or cures bleeding and so forth. And this of course has increased charge recovery. I love that. Because you're burning through so many that it charges pretty fast. And this is another movement speed. You can see I really enjoy movement speed. And as for the granite flask, you need one that is of iron skin, that increases your armor during the effect. And I like the 17 extra charges, because it just allows me to have to use it more. So This comes in handy on things like Piety's ice form. If you've noticed Piety's ice form, she shoots those ice arrows. The ice isn't doing the majority of the damage to you. She hits you with harsh physical on that. And if you do this, you can just sit in front of her and go, "What? You ain't doing nothing." But it works good on the Brutus types too. The Cole down there, the unique Brutus, the ones in the unique map. You can literally pop this and run up to them and tank them. So Granite Flask is needed, and then I of course keep a Sapphire Flask and a Topaz Flask in my stash for when I face enemies that do that certain type of element. Topaz I use on Dominus all the time because his first form, dishes out some major lightning damage, and you can tank him better if you use that. The next thing that we're going to be going over is the gems that you're going to be needing. There's two sets of essential gems that you're going to need. There's a few essential ones. You're going to need 7 that are a must-have for any Righteous Fire build, and that's going to be Righteous Fire, Increased Area of Effect, Increased Burning Damage, and Concentrated Effect. Those are all going to be linked in one item, a 4 slot. And then the other one is going to be Reduced Mana, Vitality, and Purity of Fire. Those are going to be linked, and then you get one other aura, and you can decide what you want. I decided on Purity of Elements because my items don't add enough resist to max me out without Purity of Elements, so I grabbed those. Then the rest is for the Righteous Pinata build. Now, what you're going to need for the Righteous Pinata build, if you follow my exact build, is you're going to need a lot of cast when damage taken ones. You're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4 cast when damage takens, and the whole deal is to add cast when damage takens and then add spells that have AoE on them. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Like this cast when damage taken, Elemental Weakness, and Fireball. They're both AoE, and you can socket those into a 3 slot. And then cast when damage taken, Arc, and Shock Nova. Now, here's the funny thing. Remember how I said one gem wasn't AoE? It's Arc, because I love the flashiness of Arc shocking all over the screen. It looks awesome mixed with the Righteous Pinata, which you'll get to see soon. I'm going to go down there and show you what it looks like. Really awesome. And then that's the other 3 slot item. And then another 4 slot item, you're going to cast when damage taken, Rejuvenation Totem, Molten Shell, and Ice Nova. And you can switch up to whatever totem that you like or prefer. I like Rejuvenation Totem, but I also loved the flashiness of some of the other ones. So the totem is really just switch out. You really don't need the extra rejuve, but it does come in handy. Like if a boss does hit you hard enough to make you pop your spells with the cast when damage taken, when it makes the Pinata effect, Rejuvenation Totem will heal you much faster. And then of course the Molten Shell is cool looking because it puts that fire around you, and when it goes off it makes a cool noise and it makes a flashy boom. And Ice Nova is just a must because it looks awesome. And the armor, I only have a 4 slot Carcass Jack with a 1 single unlinked socket, but with the 4 slot armor, since this makes it pretty cheap, I use Detonate Dead, Cast when damage taken, Firestorm, and Arctic Breath. And if you had 2 more slots down here, you could use 2 other AoE skills. So you can think on those if you have a Carcass Jack. Use whichever ones you want that you enjoy, because the build is all about fun. Now you can switch up any of these gems and change them how you want them. The fun is picking spells that you really enjoy to see go off, because they're going to go off when you're hit for a certain amount of damage. With that, I want to say that this build is also very viable in the late game, whether with the maps or now the new Val instances that are corrupted areas that were introduced with the Val. You only have to watch out for a few mods, and those mods that I can remember are the Blood Magic, because then you can't activate your auras with your mana, and it it takes your health, so you're not going to have much health, and that kills you. So Blood Magic, mod out of the question. Don't do it. Reroll the map, or don't do that instance. Another one that's harsh is the ones that lower your max resistance, and like we said, the max resistance is so important to Righteous Fire. So if it lowers your max resistance, you need to, of course, not do it, because it's going, your Righteous Fire, when you activate your Righteous Fire, it's going to burn you down. I'll show you what I mean by that real quick. Right here you're going to have 90% fire resistance. Now I've seen some of the lower max resist by 18, so let's just use the Righteous Fire that lowers it by a little bit.
My mana is gone.
You're going to see how it does it slow. Now imagine that on a more high scale. This is only minus the 3 additional max fire resist. So imagine 18. You would just go vroom, and you'd be done. So max, lower max resist is out of the question. The other one is the ones that lower your regen. There are ones that lower your health regen and your mana regen, which who cares about mana if you're using Righteous Fire or the Righteous Pinata build. If it lowers your life regen, don't do it. It's a mod that we don't want to do. And then the other one is chaos damage per second. Now the chaos damage per second can get you, but most times you can pot through it or regen through it, unless it's a crazy amount of chaos damage per second. So those are viable. The chaos damage is viable, but the others are not. Just remember those. And if you avoid those mods and re-roll the maps, you usually burn right through the maps. You can go and see some on the channel where I've done maps and I just sat around running around talking. In fact, one that's funny is I didn't even know I killed the boss because I guess Pinata or Righteous Fire burned them before I saw them because they were in a horde. So let's go down and test this in Lunaris Temple, and I'll show you what the Righteous Pinata looks like when it goes off and why it's nicknamed Righteous Pinata. Load Lunaris Temple. Okie doke, let's go over and see. And you can see how cool it looks with this light. The Supreme Truth is awesome. Oh, here we go. We got some enemies. We need more. There they are. There we go. You can see they're not hurting us. It lagged me because when it goes off, it's a massive amount of spells. So prepare for it to cause some issues, like you see there. This is the fun part of it. It'll kill them. You don't have to turn on Righteous Fire. Just go into a group and they'll kill themselves on you. This can further be, you can put on the punishment curse as well, I suppose, and that would be funny. Here, let's see. There's the vulnerability curse. And you can see it just destroys. And that's what's so fun about it. You picking the spell you want, and the Pinata goes off. Now let's turn on Righteous Fire, and I'll show you. That's why it's got the Righteous Pinata name, because Righteous Fire, righteous, and then the Pinata because it goes off when you're hit. Here's another thing: you need to keep OOS on there, because OS can cause it. We might be lagging, or did that guy die? Yeah, that guy's broken. The Pinata messed him up. Keep the /OOS on. That's a tip, because you're going to be running through these things so fast that you could desync. Some people don't get desync, but I sure do. So I'd say keep the OOS in mind. And once you type it out, all you have to do is press enter, press up, and then do that. And you can see there with Righteous Fire on, you're usually running through them. And you do this on most areas. We're going to go kill Cole, and I'm going to show you what the reason I use these potions, and the reason you needed it for Cole, and the reason I like run speed potions. Let's use some of those now. You can see it just burns everything. It's quite fun and hilarious. But the Pinata, you can keep the gems low, or you can level them up. But Pinata mainly goes off when you run into those huge hordes, and when you build up over time, because the damage stacks and stacks, and then goes off. I think we're near Cole. Here he is, and you're gonna hit your granite flask, and then you can just set on him. And of course he popped Pinata, and it did a much extra damage to him. Oh, look at that quartz flask. So you can see right there what it does, and you can go watch some of my other runs, like piety runs and stuff like that. There's no issue. You just, like you can see here, I'm literally just got one hand moving. I'm just moving with one hand with the mouse. Oh, look at that. The Righteous Pinata just goes. I love when it goes off. It's just like resistance shrine. Fear not the elements. Exile. Frick not from the elements. Exile. Hey, thanks for joining me for the update, and as always, take care, be safe, and be cool to each other.